Hello, thank you for joining me for today's video. We will be watching Elden Ring lore explained by VaatiVidya. We just ranked all of the bosses, well, not all of the bosses. We ranked the main bosses and then some other bosses of my choosing. I'm gonna link that video if you would like to see that. And today is time to dive into the lore and find out more and make sense of things. I'm very curious how much of this I already know, because I really tried. I read almost all of the item descriptions and I just really tried to make sense of everything and just like understand the lore. I'm sure that there are like a lot of things that I don't know, that I'm wrong about, and some things are just really a mystery to me. I don't understand them completely and I'm hoping that Vaati is just gonna help me. This video is not that long, so I'm guessing he's only gonna touch like the main things of the lore, like the main events, maybe main characters and stuff. So possibly there's not gonna be anything shocking, but I'm very excited to watch this. I have some other lore videos planned, and if you would like to see them, please let me know by leaving a like or commenting. And yeah, let's dive into this.
Our story doesn't begin in the lands between. It begins in the cosmos, far away, with an outer god called the Greater Will. There are a lot of outer gods mentioned in Elden Ring. You can think of these kind of like the great ones of Bloodborne. They're distant beings. They're all-powerful.
How many do I know? I know that there's one for Rot, one for Frenzied Flame, even though I'm not too sure about that because it is led by 3 fingers. So does that mean that it's part of the Greater Will and like part of it that went rogue, or is it a like separate kind of being? But let's say it is an outer god, so then God of Rot, Frenzied Flame. There's also this Blood Mother that we found out about it in Mog's lore. I don't know anymore. I know 3. Well, and then the Greater Will, so 4. But look at that, that was from Bloodborne. I'm sorry if this is like off topic, but you know that I haven't played Bloodborne. This looks so sick. Like, I love these spooky creatures. Oh, there's a note. At least 6, maybe more. Okay. I wish he gave us a list. Or maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Kind of like the great ones of Bloodborne. They're distant beings. They're all-powerful and they're quite unknowable by design. But many of these outer gods want to make their presence felt in the world. The Greater Will, maybe most of all. To this end, it sent a golden star hurtling towards the lands between. The Elden Star's incantation tells us that this golden star was bearing a beast, an Elden beast. The Elden Remembrance calls it a vassal beast of the Greater Will. If you didn't know, a vassal is someone who holds land on behalf of their overlord. Obviously, this is fitting in this case, because the Elden Beast occupied the lands between on behalf of the Greater Will, and was a living incarnation of the concept.
I thought that Marc was sent to the lands between too.
This beast would later become
I misunderstood
the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring itself is made up of runes of power, some great, some small, that together represent a sort of logic for the world to follow. Thus, the Elden Ring represents order. The true nature of this order is a subject of constant debate and research undergone by fundamentalists. But 2 of the key fundamentals are the laws of causality and regression. You can think of the law of causality.
So it's kind of stupid how I remember things, but like I only remember law of causality because I couldn't pronounce that word. I kept messing it up. I didn't know how to pronounce it. Every time like I came across this word, I was like, how? And I never looked it up. And I think that in the end, I just stopped reading it altogether. But it's good because in this silly way, I remember this law of causality.
As cause and effect, where actions have consequences, and those consequences are new causes that branch out into infinity. These are the relationships between things. Then there's the law of regression that states that all things eternally
you can use it on Bog's bush.
Return to their roots.
Nice, I had no
Fittingly,
idea.
then, the Elden Ring is housed within the Erdtree, which towers over the lands between. But it's very important to stress that life in the lands between did not begin with the Erdtree, the Elden Ring, or the Elden Beast. No, the lands between were occupied well before the Greater Will came.
What are these
there were
creatures?
other beings here. there were other factions here, there were other gods here, and there was even another great tree here before the Erdtree. And this is where a huge twist regarding the Erdtree comes in. So there are incantations in the game called aspects of the crucible.
Remember the one
their
with
descriptions, these are manifestations of the Erdtree's primal vital energies. And I quote, "They are an aspect of the primordial crucible where all life was once blended together." But how could all life be blended together in the Erdtree if the Erdtree appeared after life existed? Well, there can only be one answer, right? That the Erdtree is a parasite, and it took over a tree that existed here before. This ancient tree was called the Great Tree. So the Great Tree was almost certainly the location of this primordial crucible, and it must have been a very powerful primordial force for the Greater Will to
so
have
that's the
commandeered.
remainings of the Great Tree. I wonder if I ever paid attention to that when I've been there. Did I pay attention to this tree? I don't think so. There was definitely some lore in there, but I think it was more about the crucibles itself. But I don't know, maybe Vaati's gonna speak about that a bit later in the video, but there are some things that I really don't understand. Like, for example, when exactly the dragons ruled everything? Was it before the crucibles? Was it with them? There are still, like, I cannot say a lot of dragons in Lands Between, but there are plenty. And there's also like a huge corpse of a dragon in Leyndell. So when exactly did that dragon fall, and who was watching over Leyndell? I mean, when we got to Leyndell, it was only Morgoth there. But we know that, like, in times of Leyndell's prosperity, Morgoth wasn't probably allowed anywhere close to Leyndell and the throne room and just like all that. So like, who was looking after Leyndell? Who was like in charge of everything? And maybe these things were already explained in the game and I just don't remember, but like, who even fought down the dragon, and when did these dragons really exist? Also about the crucibles, I don't think that I understand the lore fully, but I'm hoping that Vaati's gonna explain.
It might even be the reason the Lands Between is important to the Greater Will in the first place. It also explains why spells and enemies related to the Great Tree's crucible would eventually be looked down upon. For example, the knot talisman is fashioned from a knotted vestige of the crucible, and it was considered a signifier of the divine in ancient times, but is now increasingly disdained as an impurity as civilization has advanced. Enemies related to the crucible are the Omen, the Misbegotten, and the Crucible Knights, and all three of them would be shunned, enslaved, or imprisoned. Those who speak for the Erdtree don't want you to know its roots, so to speak.
So, you know, like, I think I misunderstood the crucibles in the very beginning. I think that even the DLC shed a lot of light on this, because I know that Crucible Knights belong to Godfrey. They were Godfrey's knights, and I thought that they are just loyal, but I guess they were all just enslaved, right? Is there anything left inside those armors too? Like, are they just empty shells? Driven by whatever, some kind of magic, some kind of force? Can you actually check
the spell
this?
Protection of the Erdtree. In the beginning, everything was in opposition to the Erdtree, but through countless victories in war, it became the embodiment of order.
In Marika's own words,
Melina.
the Erdtree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart.
But the Greater Will needed more than a big tree. It needed loyal agents.
Why
in the
not
Lands
fingers,
Between.
right?
To this end, it has the two fingers, who
I
are
remember
its
my
envoys.
first encounter
The two
with
fingers
them.
heirloom has a weird picture
was
of
so
them,
shocked.
but it reads, "Of course, fingers cannot speak, yet these are eloquent. Persistently they wriggle, spelling out mysteries in the air. Thus did we gain the words of our faith." These words are interpreted by the finger readers. These are the undying
That's so
old
good.
crones that you would have found throughout the Lands Between. They pass down the wisdom of the two fingers, or at least they used to.
Your fingers, please, your fingers. I can read them.
most of them appear to have lost their purpose, and they're desperate to read your fingers and tell you annoying riddles, since their two fingers are likely dead. And yes, of course, there are multiple sets of two fingers. You would have found their corpses on the tops of the divine towers. Atop these towers, you loot the fingers in order to activate the true power of a great rune. Specifically though, you are giving benediction back to your great rune. You're taking a blessing back from the two dead fingers, essentially. This is just one of many blessings that the two fingers can bestow, and my point is kind of that the two fingers clearly have more than just influence. They have real power on some level. The Greater Will needs these powerful envoys and agents because, while it's obviously incredibly powerful, it does seem limited by a few things. First is space. The Greater Will didn't come to the lands between itself, it sent an elden beast to do its bidding instead. Second is time. There is a moment later in the game where your pair of two fingers go still because they're forced to commune with the Greater Will for guidance.
That doesn't make sense to me, I don't know.
The fingers will
so
again
silly.
offer their guidance.
10,000 years, 10,000 moons or something?
If not tens of thousands of moons must first pass. No matter for me, but you.
I don't know, like, Greater Will, so powerful. Like, we've got the whole Elden Beast and the Erdtree and the Golden Order and like all that, but then we've got these two fingers that basically don't even do anything. They cannot move, they cannot speak, and it takes them thousands or tens of thousands years to communicate back to the Greater Will. It's like, it's insane to me. Why is it like that? Are they really that powerful then?
How will you ever manage to wait?
So the Greater Will needs a physical manifestation of order. It needs envoys to convey its will, but what it also needs is a god. Introducing Marc the Eternal. I have this utterly enormous mind map of Elden Ring.
Wow! Wait, let's look at things. Okay, we've got Marc the Eternal in the middle. Marc nodes. So much work has been put into this. It's actually amazing. Morgoth, Mog, Melina, Mikaela, Melania, Radagon. The whole Radagon mystery, I am hoping to find out more about that. Like, when exactly did Marika call Radagon, and when exactly did he become her consort, but also then she turned into him, like used his body or something. I don't really understand that part of the lore too. But there's just so much. And then the god skins too. Yeah, obviously they're connected with Malekith and the Rune of Death. Okay.
Lore, and
I'm sorry,
there's
I'm just
a reason
pausing a
she's
lot.
at the center. She's essentially the equivalent of Gwyn from Dark Souls.
I've got many questions.
Except, unlike Gwyn, Marika didn't just crawl out of the dark and find power. To an extent, it seems like she earned it. We don't know much about her origins, except that she is of the Numen race, which is actually an origin that you can choose in the character selection screen. Numen come from outside the lands between, and are supposed descendants of denizens of another world, long-lived but seldom born.
Hey, it's Marika.
At some point, Marika was chosen as an Empyrean. What is an Empyrean? Well, an Empyrean is a being chosen by the Fingers as a candidate for godhood. As an Empyrean, Marika received the aid of a shadow to do her bidding. So what is a shadow? Well, it's a wolf, shadowbound to its Empyrean by the two Fingers. Luna Princess
but they have
Rani
different, like they still look a bit different, right? Like Malekith definitely looks different from Blythe. Blythe looks more like a werewolf, like a more resembling a human, right? And why? Why is that? Why is that? And I think then like the only time that I saw a Greater Will or like two Fingers use the power to actually interact with the world was when they sent this imposter or like this other shadow that looked exactly like Blythe to kill Rani and to kill me and whatever. I think that was like the only time that I actually saw Greater Will or like two Fingers do something about something.
Another example
that is like
of an Empyrean
more
with
obvious,
a shadowbound
I
beast.
guess.
You would have met Blythe. These creatures are the Empyrean's very own shadow. They are completely loyal to their needs and, by definition, incapable of treachery.
I miss you.
Marika's shadow was a beast called Malakath. Every Empyrean uses their shadow in different ways, but Marika's sole need of her shadow was as a vessel to lock away destined death.
I feel sorry for it.
So what is destined death? Well, according to Enya,
he probably never saw Marika again.
Of death.
The rune of death goes by 2 names. The other is destined death.
We mentioned earlier that the Elden Ring is made up of runes, and at some point, maybe when she was chosen as a god, Marika plucked the rune of death from the Elden Ring. She gave the rune of death to Malakath, her totally loyal shadow, who bore a black blade imbued with this rune. It's kind of genius, really. In a single act, she removed the concept of death from the lands between, while also commanding total control of death through her shadow, who could deliver it at her whim.
Oh, I kind of thought that she cannot use it too.
If death is removed from the lands between, how come I can kill this dog? First off,
it's not a dog.
You. Second, from a lore point of view, that dog isn't really dead. It's simply in the process of its spirit, or its soul, returning to the Erdtree.
Oh yeah.
Catacomb dungeons, for example, are specifically constructed near the roots of the Great Tree for this reason, so that the Erdtree can reabsorb their ashes back into it.
Great.
This process replaced the concept of a death that you were destined to have. But this random spirit outside of a catacomb dungeon says it best.
Proper death.
As another example of this theory, when you kill a major boss, you receive a remembrance of them. These are spirits, and they are hewn into the Erdtree. In this way, thanks to the Erdtree's grace, their spirits are immortalized, in a sense. This new form of death also explains what's happening when you summon spirits.
From ash and return to the Erdtree.
However, some spirits never return to the Erdtree, and they rise within death as corpses or skeletons instead.
Oh.
So this was the new order, and it's important to stress that it was in this moment, when the rune of death was removed, when destined death was taken, this is when order became the Golden Order.
The forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation.
Specifically, this was Marika's Golden Order. So not only did she become a god and a vessel for the Elden Ring, she became renowned as Marika the Eternal for her removal of destined death. It was a huge part of her character and her reign as well. However, Marika had more than just death to conquer. She had wars to fight, as the world was occupied by many forces that could threaten her Golden Order.
Okay, we'll find out more about dragons.
There was war with the Storm Lord, who likely ruled over Stormvale. And there was a war with the giants, who were masters of the flame that could burn the Erdtree.
I think we found out some bits of it, right? But what is really a Storm Lord? Was it ever explained more? Is Vidi's gonna explain more?
There was war with the ancient dragons, who incidentally had stones that could twist time and thus slay a god. And finally, there was war brewing with the Carrion royalty, who had previously obeyed laws which contravened the Golden Order. Thus, sort of similar to how the Greater Will needed an Empyrean to enforce its will, Marika herself needed someone to wage war. So, there was to be a husband, a consort, an Elden Lord. The man chosen was Hoarah, a ferocious warrior who became known as the Lord of the Battlefield. His crown was warranted with strength, and while it was for this strength that Marika married him, he was also required to take a vow to conduct himself as a lord, to suppress the ceaseless lust for battle that raged within.
I have nothing but respect for the man.
Took the
I
beast
love him.
Regent Sarosh upon his back. You'll notice this is another example of a beast being given for the purpose of serving order. Thus, in this moment, he went from being Hoarah, warrior, to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, consort to Queen Marika, and a certified...
Do you see how the lion is just biting the shoulder pad there? That's hilarious. Oh, such a nice detail. Look at it.
Godfrey and Marika had 3 demigod children together. There was Godwyn the Golden, who you saw being killed in the opening trailer, and there were also the reviled Omen twins, Morgoth, who guards the Erdtree, and Moog, who became Lord of Blood. You might think that Godric was another demigod child, but he actually wasn't. Instead, he was probably descended from Godwin.
I forgot
anyway,
about that.
We'll talk about the demigods more in detail in another video, so subscribe for that. But for now, just know that Godfrey and his offspring were the first demigods, henceforth known as the Golden Lineage. In his wars, Godfrey led his 16 Crucible Knights into battle, who were named so for they fought with the primordial powers of the Erdtree. Their incantations were aspects of the Crucible itself, and they likely fought giants, dragons, the Stormlord, and more to usher in their age, the age of the Erdtree.
In Marika's own words, "Hark, brave warriors. Hark, my Lord Godfrey. We commend your deeds. Guidance hath delivered ye through each ordeal to the place ye stand. Put the giants to the sword and confine the flame atop the mount. Let a new epoch begin.
I don't remember this one.
An epoch glistening with life.
I never heard her say that.
Brandish the Elden Ring for the age of the Erdtree."
The Erdtree would go on to be largely seen as a blessing for all of those in the lands between, especially those close to it in Leyndell, the capital city of the Erdtree. The tree bestowed blessings. For example, the dew that dropped from its branches were like jewels. It loomed overhead as a constant reminder of order, and its roots reached far and wide, relieving many of the burden of death. In fact, Erdtree burial was one of the highest honors a hero could receive. One by one, the previous factions of the world fell. The giants were put to the sword, and their fell god was killed by Marika herself. The ancient dragons broke down the walls of Leyndell, but met fierce retaliation. However, I think the House of the Erdtree encountered the most trouble against the land to their southwest, Leonia. Here, the House of the Moon repelled their offensives time and time again. And I mean that literally, because there was not just one, but two wars fought here.
Imagine how pissed Marika was, like, when she sent Radagon to fight Rennala, but he actually fell in love with Rennala and decided to just stay there and live with her and have babies.
There was no victory for the Golden, nor for the Moon. And I suspect it was probably because of these lobsters. These damn things can snipe you from like a mile away, and actually, it was probably because of the carrion knights.
Oh, that's so good. That's so hilarious. I agree with my whole heart. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I hated crabs for a while since Dark Souls 3, and then I was introduced to lobsters and I hated them even more.
Who, according to their weapons, were able to wield sorcerous battle skills, and despite numbering fewer than 20, this power made them a match for even the champions of gold in battle.
Wow.
These enchanted knights were anointed by the Lunar Queen, a young astrologer who went on to establish the House of Caria as royalty in this land. With her bewitching lunar magic, she won over the Academy of Raya Lucaria, where glintstone sorcery was studied.
Honestly, I don't know, like, I didn't have any issues with the sorcerers and everything. I guess, like, those Carrion Knights are really tough, but, like, Leyndell Knights, I still have PTSD from them. I remember fighting them and dying to them, and they're just, like, so tough.
And united, the Carrion royal family and the learned scholars of Raya Lucaria defended their home from the golden aggressors. At the head of this great golden army was Radagon.
Lord Radagon was a great champion, possessed of flowing red locks. He came to these lands at the head of a great golden host. When he met Lady Rennala in battle,
these two champions clashed, fell in love, and joined their houses.
Radagon once cleansed himself with celestial dew, repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to
I don't
Rennala.
Remember this
the order
particular
of
sentence.
The Erdtree and the fate of the moon were conjoined, and all the wounds of war forgiven.
You might think it strange that the Greater Will would permit this union, but It's not too odd, all things considered. As with most From Software games, sorcery and faith are just two sides of the same coin, and both of these powers stem from the cosmos. Radagon and Rennala were known to have 3 children together. Lunar Princess Rani, who inherited her mother's propensity for lunar magic, Radan, who took after his father Radagon and would go on to master gravitational magic, and Rykard, who pioneered new hex sorceries and would go on to feed himself to a great serpent. It follows that at some point after this, Marika began to harbor doubts about the Golden Order, that she had had a hand in creating.
In Marika's own words, I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased.
I don't remember
Those
that as well.
blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?
And it's at this point that we should talk about Marika's motivations, her character. This is surely going to be one of those huge points of debate in the coming years, but
Oh, I wonder
for
when
now,
he created this video, like, that was 3 years ago? Right, when did the DLC came out? Like, I wonder if there's gonna be DLC stuff in this
my
video
working
too.
theory is that she wanted to discover the truth behind order and the truth behind the greater will, and she believed that bonds had to be broken so that they could be better understood. She believed that there was great meaning to be found in hardship.
Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle unto eternity.
Sir Gideon.
For Lord Godfrey, his struggle ended at the end of his campaigns. According to his armor, he led the war against the giants, faced the Storm Lord alone, and then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, and it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. In truth, he was robbed of his grace. Then Marika sent him away.
Yeah, got rid of him.
My lord.
Just like that.
And thy warriors, I divest each of thee
I
of
remember
thy
this.
grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
This became known as the Long March of the Tarnished, as Godfrey and his tarnished descendants walked away from the lands between. But Queen Marika absolutely had a plan here, that Lord Godfrey and his descendants would one day return stronger, having struggled outside of grace.
Then,
That's still so
after
cool.
thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
Definitely
Soon
very
after,
cruel.
she found a new husband. Either that or a new husband was found for her.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between, Radagon left Rennala to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king
Did he
consort.
want this? My biggest question. Maybe Vaati's gonna talk about this, but like, did Marika make him come back? Why did he go back? Why did he leave Rennala and probably like abandon his children as well? When exactly was that? How old was his children? And yeah, when everything
Given
happened?
the title of second
how?
Elden Lord. The mystery endures to this day as to why Lord Radagon would cast Lady
Mystery.
Rennala
Okay, no
aside,
answers.
and moreover, why a mere champion would be chosen for the seat of Elden Lord.
Whatever the case, as a part of this union, Radagon's prior 3 children with Rennala became demigod stepchildren, granted grace thanks to their new family tree. Rennala was broken by this, and so was her country, Leonia. The Queen's set reads, when Rennala, head of both the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the Carian royal family, lost her husband Radagon, her heart went along with him. And then those at the Academy realized that Rennala was no champion after all. In the wake of Radagon's betrayal, and Rennala's poor judgment, Liurnia struggled with civil war, with the Academy of Raya Lucaria on one side, and the Carrion Royals on the other. And it's here, during the age of the Erdtree, that Lunar Princess Rani, daughter of Rennala and Radagon, stole a fragment of the Rune of Death.
It happened during the golden age of the Erdtree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring.
That's such a cool scene.
Someone stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith.
Oh, that's
the
right
Black
here.
Blade.
I barely remember
As mentioned
his
previously,
voice.
Malekith was Marika's shadow, and he had sealed destined death in a black blade. Then a fragment, only a fragment, of this Rune of Death was stolen. And once this happened, Malekith went a step further in protecting destined death. He bound the blade within his own flesh, such that none might rob death ever again. It was too late, however. This fragment of the Rune of Death was used immediately, that night, to kill a demigod, Marika's own son, Godwyn the Golden.
That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history. And it
I
beca-
wonder if, like, so from what I know, that's why Marika even shattered the Elden Ring, because she couldn't handle her son being dead? Or did she have like some other plan?
became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering.
Now,
How much you really
there is a
cared
lot
for
of
Godwyn.
really credible evidence that Marika was behind this plot to have a fragment of the Rune of Death stolen.
You've gotta be
There's
kidding
also
me.
a ton of evidence that Marika is behind the entirety of your tarnished quest, but we'll talk about that in another
What?
video.
There's
For
no
now,
way.
all you really need to know, in terms of the timeline at least, is this. After the marriage of Marika and Radagon, and after a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen, Marika went on to shatter the Elden Ring, and Radagon attempted to repair it, to no avail. The Elden Ring had been broken into runes, some great and some small.
You know, it's said that Lord Radagon harbored a secret. A famed sculptor of the Erdtree capital was once summoned to render Lord Radagon's likeness in giant
Law of
stature
regression, let's go.
when he glimpsed the skeleton in Radagon's
Bam.
closet. And as such, it's said the great statue harbors his secret too.
Of course, the huge twist in Elden Ring is that Radagon is Marika, or depending on what you believe, he became her, for she knew it was going to happen.
In Marika's own words, O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
You can tell when From Software is keeping something a little bit open-ended, and of everything in Elden Ring's lore, this will also go on to be one of the biggest unknowns as we move forward. For example, the wording, thou art yet to become me, reinforces that Marika and Radagon were two separate entities before the shattering.
Yeah.
However, in contrast, there is also evidence that Radagon was always part of Marika.
I feel like she contradicts herself in that one sentence there. Like, you're yet become part of me, but then she calls him my other self, as in he's always been her other self.
For example, Enya says that
The demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika.
but how can this be if Radagon married Rennala and had those demigod children? The only way that makes sense is if Radagon was always Marika and he just went over there to seduce Rennala long ago. I'll
Oh my
present
god, that's
more
so
concrete theories
evil.
in the future, but on this matter, the most important thing is, what do you think? While you can figure out a ton of Elden Ring's story, not all of it is open to interpretation. Certain things are, and this is one of them. And your interpretation is a big part of what makes this story special. At any rate, the union of Radagon and Marika seems to be a union of two fundamental opposing laws of the Golden Order. We mentioned these laws earlier, actually. There's the law of causality, and Marika is an agent of cause and effect. And there's the law of regression, as Radagon is a character who aspires to be complete and regress together. So I have a theory that forcing these two beings that represent these concepts together...
I just want to say that, like, seeing these up-close clips is so nice, because I feel like sometimes you enter the arena and you fight a boss and you cannot really get a closer look at the boss. I guess that's why I kept using my telescope on everything, because I just want to see everything up close. And I know that you can do it after, but like I think it helps with the immersion to actually see the character, the enemy, the beast, like whatever, and like understand. And sometimes it really sucked that like everyone just kept attacking me and I couldn't look at things. And it's so nice here to see this up close look at Radagon, for example.
Would have corrected Marika's deviance, but even so, she was imprisoned in the Erdtree for the crime of the Shattering.
Marika's trespass demanded a heavy sentence. But even in shackles, she remains a god and the vision's vessel.
The conjoined Radagon and Marika even had 2 demigod children of their own, Miquella and Malenia. These 2 children were born afflicted. Miquella was cursed with eternal childhood, and Malenia harbored a
I had no
horrific
idea about
rot
this. I think
within.
someone told me in the comments.
Even so, these 2 children were both chosen as Empyreans. They were immensely...
So was it like, did Greater Will have something to do with this? Or was it like those other outer gods that did this? Like why exactly? Was Marika being punished for something? Or maybe it's not even connected with that? I don't know.
Sacred beings and eligible to inherit godhood from the Greater Will. Perhaps the Greater Will was just desperate to find a worthy successor. And indeed, in the Shattering War to come, many would try to claim the shards of the Elden Ring, and they would try to take the throne, including, of course, the Tarnished, who returned from their long march at long last, which we'll talk about in the next main lore video. I should probably also mention here that if you become a patron, you'll see upcoming lore videos early, as that's one of the rewards you get if you pledge to the $3 tier. And if you think my channel really adds a lot of value to the Souls games for you, to the point where you pledge $20, then in this new tier, you'll receive a new mug every 3 months that has a unique design on it. To do with
these
the
are
games
so
by
pretty.
From Software. There are 4 to collect. The first one you'll get is inspired
Fatigue
by
defeated. What was the other one?
To do with the games by From
Energy restored, delight discovered. That's so
Software.
cool.
There are 4 to collect. The first one you'll get is inspired by Dark Souls, then Elden Ring, then Sekiro, and finally Bloodborne. And they all have fantastic art that I worked on with an amazing artist named Chu. But anyway, I figured this is the right place to end this video because the information here is going to be overwhelming. I bet it probably was too overwhelming, you know? It took me ages to commit these names and the relationships they had with other characters to memory, so I hope you guys are doing alright. One thing that helped me a lot was that we designed an enormous mind map with pretty much all of Elden Ring's lore, all of its item descriptions, all of its dialogues, all of the relationships between characters that we can think of. We added all of this together and it helped a ton in learning about the story and visualizing it all. And one day I will make this asset available to you all because I think after doing it, I think this is the quintessential way to piece together the story, and I think giving you guys this asset eventually will make that accessible for people. So I'm really excited about that. I want to thank Absa and Zard for accepting the paid task of helping me put all the raw data into this mind map so that I could better understand everything. I want to thank Pereyra for fulfilling all of my footage requests and creating so many cinematic scenes for this video.
Amazing, actually amazing.
Enjoy. And I last of all want to thank John Devlin for the incredible thumbnail. And of course, thank you for watching. There are some really exciting things ahead, and I actually believe this might be the best story that From Software have ever put together. I just think not only are there so many amazing item descriptions, but so many of them are impactful. There are so many moments where you piece together the story and have like a eureka moment, and I'm enjoying it so much. But now I'm gonna go and play the game a little bit because I've been editing this video for too long. So, see you next time.
This was absolutely amazing. I had a lot of fun watching this. I hope that I didn't yap too much, but this is a reaction video, so I was reacting, and yeah, I guess that some of you might be watching this for the very first time, so I hope that you enjoyed having this experience with me. I think that the most shocking thing for me is like saying that Marika is behind behind stealing the Rune of Death, and behind killing Godwin then, and like behind our whole journey as a Tarnished. That is mind-blowing to me, and let me know if you think that that is true. Another mystery was Radagon, and it still remains as a mystery. As Vaati said, people just have different opinions and there are no concrete evidences on this. But yeah, the video was great, and like I obviously forgot, or maybe I didn't get some interactions with Melina, and then also like the ghosts, the spirits. It's amazing to me how much lore these spirits offer, and I regret not paying more attention to them. I think they held so many answers to everything. When I started playing this game, I was taking notes, and I think that I should have taken notes of the spirits and what they said, and I didn't do that. I basically took notes of the items descriptions and then NPCs, dialogues, and all that, completely neglecting the spirits. Maybe because I didn't understand anything basically of what they were saying, but yeah, this is an amazing video. So much work has been put into this and so much passion, and Vaati had great people helping him, and it was very immersive and cinematic. All these characters that they create that represent the in-game characters is amazing and helps with the immersion a lot, and yeah, I enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.